Hello. In the previous video lesson, I briefly discussed the theory of optimal currency areas and what does that imply to which countries will find it beneficial to join the monetary union. So in this lesson, I will then try to briefly discuss empirically that is the Eurozone then optimal currency area in the sense of the theory, and how does then this kind of has the European monetary integration followed the theory? So let's first discuss what is the share of volume of intra-EU exports, because this is also something that the Krugman et al. Textbook is also looking, but this is somewhat dated. So I have here a little bit more recent figures. So I found this diagram from European Parliamentary Research Service that indicating the volume of intra-EU exports in billions of euros. And the purpose of this is to indicate you the development of exports within the EU countries and its development over time. So notice that, of course, there have been more member states joining in. So this is why there is starts in 1993, there's EU 12, growing to EU 15, and then eventually enlarging to 25, 27, 28. And then the last change is then the Brexit when Britain left the union. So then the number of EU countries is back to 27. So this kind of extensions and then eventually Brexit would then change this composition of countries included in the EU, and that partly also explains the growth in the intra-EU exports, because when the larger group of countries have joined the union, then there's also the volume of intra-EU exports tends to increase. So proportionately, there has been enormous growth in the intra-EU exports. However, this figure doesn't indicate that if there is any kind of inflation correction, so we should take that also into account. And another thing is that this is in billions of euros. So of course it would be also then better to have it proportionate to something. So of course also the economies are growing over time. So that also then can influence this picture. So this is why in the next figure then I have taken from the same source the share of intra-EU exports. So I believe that this is relative to the total exports. So that, for example, the highest share of intra-EU exports is that of the Czech Republic, 81.5%, and I believe that it refers to that it's 81.5% of total exports. And the EU average is 61.8%. So if you look at this kind of shares of countries with the higher intra-EU export than the EU average and versus lower than the average, and if you contrast this with the theory of optimal currency areas, then do we see that countries which are most closely integrated have decided to join the monetary union and adopt the euro currency, and do these countries with the low share then keep their own national currency? So interestingly, this diagram actually seems to suggest that opposite could be the case. So, for example, we have the highest share of intra-EU exports in Czech Republic, which has its own currency. The second one is Luxembourg, which is part of the Eurozone, but then third one is Hungary, which also has its own currency. Slovakia is in the Eurozone, but Poland has also its own currency. Romania continues to have its own currency. So actually, many of the countries which have the highest shares of intra-EU exports have kept their own currencies, and then actually large EU countries such as Germany, France, Italy, they have actually relatively low share of intra-EU exports, actually lower than the EU 27. So it seems that this theory of optimal currency areas does actually a relatively poor job to predict that which countries have found it beneficial to join the monetary union and which have a benefit would benefit to stay out of the monetary union. So if you look at these countries, of course, perhaps the geography is one of the reasons that explain this high share of intra-EU exports. So all of these countries at the top of this list, the Czech Republic, Luxembourg, Hungary, Slovakia, so all top four are landlocked countries within the continent. So they do not have some sea harbors that would make it easy to have trade overseas to other continents. So then if you look at then countries like, for example, very small shares, we have here Cyprus and Ireland, which are basically island countries. They have much better possibilities to trade with the rest of the world outside of the EU countries. So it seems that geography actually explains a lot of these intra-EU exports. But then if you want to see some kind of support for this or at least association with this with the theory, if we think of the Nordic EU countries, we see that Finland has slightly higher share of intra-EU exports than for example Denmark or Sweden. And this can be related to the fact that Finland is part of the Eurozone in contrast to Denmark and Sweden. And if you think of geography, of course, Denmark and Sweden are much more closely positioned to the large Central European markets. So perhaps then the membership in the monetary union has at least partly contributed to the share of intra-EU exports of Finland. And anyway, for most of the countries, the share of intra-EU exports is definitely higher than 50%, so more than half. So at least based on these exports shares, then the EU is relatively highly integrated, but that doesn't seem to have influenced so much this political decision of countries to join the monetary union or not. But of course, the integration is not only about the trade of goods. So there's also, of course, factors of production. And the next question concerns what about the labor markets? So I found this kind of some data from the annual report on intra-EU labor mobility published in 2023, but the latest year is 2021. So first of all, this diagram can be helpful to put this labor mobility in the EU to its context. So it's the blue line, which is fairly horizontal. It indicates that within the EU and EFTA countries, EFTA meaning the European Free Trade Area, so there have been like some 300, 400,000 workers moving within this area. Compared to the total population of the EU and EFTA countries, this is of course relatively marginal, and compared to, for example, the labor mobility in the USA between different states, this remains fairly marginal. And the orange color line, which is on the negative scale, indicates then the labor mobility of European nationals. So there's net effect is negative, meaning that more EU citizens have migrated to outside of EU, for example, to Britain. But this negative, it has been decreasing, and this could be partly also that this kind of negative net migration away from the EU, for example, to Britain, might be partly also due to factors such as Brexit. And then the third curve, this green broken line, refers to third country nationals. So these are then workers coming to the EU and EFTA countries from outside of EU, for example, from Ukraine or Russia or Middle East or Africa. So compared to the volume of the EU movers, the blue line, it is has been most years roughly double the size of the EU workers. So there is some labor mobility within the EU and EFTA countries, but the large volume of this migration and labor mobility actually comes from these third country nationals. So what about then this? Where do these workers then locate to? So this is then a map showing this with the different color codes that in which countries proportionate to the total population then this kind of labor mobility is going to. So the darkest blue color indicates that there's, compared to the population, there is a large inflow of movers. So interestingly, it goes somewhat against this kind of idea of this like high degree of economic integration and free labor mobility. That actually there are countries like the Switzerland and Norway, Iceland have this kind of dark blue color. So in fact, countries outside of the EU, which are still EFTA countries, so they have attracted, despite they have like more strict migration rules, they have attracted more movers than the EU countries and the Eurozone countries. And even countries that have held their own currencies, such as Denmark and Sweden, are doing also pretty well. So then for example, Finland or the Baltic countries or many Eastern European countries have attracted less movers. So if anything, there seems to be more like a negative correlation with the being a member of the monetary union and the EU and this ability to attract foreign workers. So then, if you look at then large countries, this can also be helpful to put it in context. So there is figures from 2021. So here is, for example, Germany, the largest economy in the EU. Then the negative orange color means that German citizens have there's a net migration away from Germany to other countries. However, the labor pool has increased because there is a large number of movers both from the EU and from the third countries. So the green color is third country nationals, blue color is EU movers in Germany, and the orange negative value is then this German nationals moving to other countries. The similar story to Italy also, although for Italy the third country nationals have a larger share, and especially Spain has very large share of third country nationals. So I believe that Spain has, for example, attracted migrant workers from Latin America. And then if you look at these larger economies, then Poland has relatively high this negative net migration of Polish workers, but still the labor supply in Poland has also increased due to positive migration of EU movers and third country nationals. If we then look at the smaller countries, so notice that here the scale is that smallest step is 50,000 movers. In the smaller countries, such as Finland, the scale is so different. So there is 20,000 movers. So among the smaller countries, we see here Finland has gained also both EU workers and third country nationals. There's some negative net migration away from Finland. Uh, and then I don't go through each country in detail. So the only countries with a significant negative migration away from country are Romania, and I believe this must be Croatia, and Romania has even lost its third country citizens in 2021. So the big picture seems to be that most of the EU and EFTA countries have been attracting workers from third countries. So this green bars are important source to keep this net migration positive in most of the countries. But then if we consider this labor mobility just within the EU, then this figure indicates that how then EU nationals are moving, and which EU countries then this labor mobility within the EU is coming from. So there's 2 years, 2022 with blue color, and for comparison, 2017 is with the yellow bar. But these numbers seem to be relatively stable over this 5-year period. So the large countries where this inflow of movers are coming from, so where these workers within the EU are coming from, the largest one by far is Romania, followed by Poland, Italy, Portugal, and Bulgaria. And then there is large countries, Germany and France. Then, but it's mainly indeed Romania, Poland, and then Southern Europe, Italy, and Portugal. And then we can also see where do these Romanian and Polish workers are going. So this diagram then indicates that what are these destination countries of Romanian workers moving within the EU. So the largest chunk was Romania. So this is this darkest blue color, and these kind of sizes of these blocks then indicate that what are the destinations of Romanian migrant workers. So the biggest destination for Romanian workers has been Italy, followed by Spain and Germany. So we see this kind of direction of flows. Where do these workers go? So in the middle we have Poland, and not surprisingly, a large chunk of almost half of Polish migrant workers have gone to Germany, the neighboring country for Poland. For Italian workers, then also Germany has been the biggest destination, followed by Spain and the neighboring country Switzerland. So this also includes the EFTA countries, not only EU. For Portugal, then it is the darker green. So then Portuguese migrant workers have mainly gone to France, but then there's also Switzerland, Germany, and Spain. And from Bulgaria, the biggest destinations have been Germany and Spain. So this also helps to put this kind of in proportion these 5 biggest sources of EU migrants and which kind of destinations they prefer. So there's also some impact with the geography that where this labor movement flows are going. So in conclusion, perhaps it is good to note that indeed this degree of integration within the EU, both in the labor markets and in the goods trade, has definitely increased over time. It is still relatively low, for example, if we talk about labor mobility, but there has been also increase in this integration. However, the fact that which countries choose to join the monetary union seems only loosely related to the degree of integration, in contrast to what the theory of optimal currency areas would predict. So it seems to be mainly a political decision rather than economic one. So in the next video lesson, then I will discuss the European debt crisis that followed in the aftermath of the financial crisis in the USA. See you then.